Hi everybody, welcome to Off the Wall. I'm Rob Rutherford. I've got a really interesting guest here today as usual, Greg Smith from Mirage Builders in Las Vegas. Greg has a long career in the industry and he's going to have one hell of a story to tell today. Greg, how you doing today?
Doing great, Rob. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. Thanks a lot for coming in.
No, of course. Thanks for having me.
So you've had some big changes.
Yeah, just 2 days ago, today's Tuesday, I've been with Mirage for 2 days after being with Superior for 4 years. Got asked to leave the LA market and go to the Las Vegas market with Sean Martin and open up a brand new office for Mirage there. And you know me, man. I like building stuff from the ground up,
Yeah.
and that was a challenge I couldn't pass up. It was like the natural evolution in my career of, you know, being executive VP over at Superior. Where do you go next from there? And you know, this seemed like the logical next step.
They made you an offer you couldn't refuse, huh?
I did get an offer I couldn't refuse.
Good for you. Good for you.
Yeah, and, you know, and then leaving California, this overpopulated, gun-grabbing enemies of freedom. It's nice to go someplace where you know, lower tax base and you can kind of, you know, do what you want to do, I guess, out there. It's
Yeah,
a little
yeah.
bit more of a Wild West.
For sure, for sure. Well, yeah, this is, we all know what California is like. They don't like people here.
No, they really don't. They sure like your money, though.
They
right?
do, for sure.
They like your money, and you know, as I was researching moving into Nevada, into another state, I was looking about the tax implications and, you know, how it is that I get declared that I'm over there, so I can cut off that 10%. Actually, it's a little bit higher, 10% state tax that we pay. And I found out that when the professional athletes come over here, like somebody from the Toronto Raptors, when they come and play the Lakers, for that game, they have to pay California tax.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. When I was doing the research for that, I was like, man.
Wow, they want it all.
They do.
They want it all.
They want it all. You know?
I guess because you're employed for a couple of hours in California, and those are big numbers that those guys are getting paid.
Those are huge numbers.
Yeah.
It's a better deal than I got, but
For sure.
yeah, no, it's so yeah, I'm excited to go there. Sean's been a really good friend of mine for quite a while. We worked together over at KHS&S, and I don't know if you know, one of the things that the company did, KHS&S did, was and I don't know how they picked Sean and I, but they picked Sean and I and a guy named Rob Walter from the Anaheim office, and there was another guy out of the Vegas office, I can't remember his name now. And they put us on a plane to go to other markets and explore opening up new offices for KHS&S. And so Sean and I were part of that team doing that. And one of the first places we went was Denver. And it was our job to go meet with Mortensen, PCL, Hensel Phelps, and then some of the more local general contractors in Denver, and see if that was a viable market or not. And you know, ultimately they wound up opening an office there, and Sean was in charge of that office. But yeah, you know, he somehow got free from KHS&S, I guess somewhere around the end of December, 1st of January.
Okay.
And you know, decided to go ahead and open up that office there in Vegas. So here we go.
Well, he had a lot of experience in that market, so he'll do fine. And he's been in the industry for a long time, so he's going to be. You guys will knock it out of the park over there.
And I hope so.
Yeah.
It's a lot of expectation that I know he's putting on himself, I'm putting on myself. It is a little terrifying.
Yes.
You know, I've been in this market for 34 years, and I know, I think, everybody in town.
A lot of them.
And it's very easy to navigate, and you know who's doing what, you know who's where, you know what GCs have good relationships with which drywall contractors, and you really know the landscape. I can see all the pieces on the board,
Yes.
Going into Vegas, I'm not sure I'm even going to know where the board is. So
You'll have a bit of a learning curve, but he's going to be there as your partner to help you out on that. So
Yeah.
that's going to be you'll have your training wheels.
Yeah, there's no doubt. He has a very deep reach in Vegas. He's been in that market 21 years, and being in that market with KHS&S is, you know, they're like General Motors, man.
Yeah.
They're the big boys
For sure.
You know, so and it's kind of cool teaming up with them because we both have that big mind mentality that we got from KHS&S. You know, so we have the same training. We have the same viewpoint on things, and the same goals and ideas on how to set up an operation. You know, maybe that's a little narrow-minded to have two guys with the same kind of a focus, but I think getting up and going, you're not having to wrestle with the process. You're not having to fight the machine. You know, you both know exactly what's expected of each other and where you're headed. So, and you know, having the training that I got at KHS&S, I always, you know, and I've told you this a million times, I feel like I got a master's degree in construction management from those guys.
For sure.
They taught me so much, you know.
Yes.
And KHS&S, you know, and I told Dave Suter, you know, we had a talk one time, and we were talking about, you know, my departure from there, and I told him that, you know, I felt like an alumni, not a former employee, because of how much I've learned. And, you know, it's very rare when the company gives you more than you give them. And I really felt like that company gave me a lot. And so, you know, KHS&S is one of those places that's always with you, like an alumni. And so I talked to Sean about that. He feels the same way about it. He has the same attitude. So.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Exciting times for you.
I don't think we're going to paint all our trucks green, but
yeah, I don't know if you've even chosen a color yet.
no. Actually, we don't even have an office as we're sitting here right now. We don't even have an office yet set up. I was talking to Sean earlier today, and he had to cut the call short because he had a real estate guy call him to go look at an office. So we don't have a place to sit yet.
Unbelievable. Well, it's fresh out of the gate then. It's a fresh deal.
Yeah.
You'll do fine. You'll do fine. I
Yeah.
have a ton of confidence in you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
When did you get into lathing? Because you were a lather for, that was your trade.
Yeah. It was June of 1985, June 17th, 1985. Was my first day with a company called PFC, and my dad was a foreman for PFC, and I was going to college at the time. You know, I went to college, and I was going to college at the time to be an aerospace engineer, and I ran out of money, and I needed some money for college. So he says, "All right, I'll get you in, but it's only for the summer, and then come fall quarter, you gotta get out and go back to school." And I said, "Deal." And I'd done some, you know, drywall work and some lathing work, and I say that loosely. I actually swept the floor and drove the truck up in Reno. My dad was a superintendent up in Reno when I was a kid, and I would go up there on the summer vacations and work. And I probably can't say this out loud. Maybe you can. You know, they paid cash back then, and so I would take the money back. I was just a high school kid, and then I didn't have to have a job during the school year. I was a 3-sport guy, so I could just play sports, and I had that stockpile of cash. So that was really my first exposure. But then I got in June, and then by the time September came, I had 2 upgrades. I was a 3rd stage apprentice, and 1st stage apprentice was $7.14 an hour. Then the next level was $9.26 an hour. And then I believe it was 11.57 was 3rd stage. Now 11.57 in 1985, I felt like a millionaire.
Yeah, you were doing better than the average bearer.
Yeah, no, I switched my college curriculum to nights. I was going to Cal State LA, so I switched to nights, and I did a night curriculum, and then I worked during the day. Bought a brand new truck, moved out into an apartment. Man, I was in Fat City on 11.57 an hour or something. But yeah, that's where it started.
And You stayed with PFC throughout your apprenticeship?
I stayed with PFC literally until they went out of business. I was the sixth employee left. So when they laid me off, there was only 5 left, finishing up the Triangle Square Mall down in Costa Mesa. So they went out of business, but I stayed with them, with the Kea family, and another great group of people. I mean, you know the Keas,
Yes.
they're fantastic people.
Yeah.
And so I stayed with them through that time, which was all out in the field. And then I got a job, as most of the PFC guys did. We all went over to Hart Jory. They were Hart Drywall / John Jory. They were transitioning from Hart to John Jory. I think John Jory was buying them out or something. But I went to the Newport Beach Central Library, still a foreman, and did that job. And during that time, this is about '91, if you remember the savings and loans collapse.
Yep.
And that was our first
Yes.
depression.
Yep.
You
Yep.
know, and you know the difference between a depression and a recession.
I do.
A recession is when your neighbor's out of work, and depression's when you're out of work.
That's
And,
depressing.
Yeah, so I went from recession to depression, and called up the Keas, and they had just bought Standard Drywall down in San Diego, and called them up and they said, come on back, you know, all the foremen are coming back, and you know, kind of getting the band back together thing,
Yeah.
and we're going to sign with the union. We got enough work, and we're in talks with the McCarrans, and we're going to re-sign with the union, so come on back. So I went back and worked for them in the field for probably a couple, 3 more years, I guess. And then I got an opportunity to get an office job as an estimator for a small little company called RMD. And do you know how that came up?
No.
You know Steve Scarpella from, he was over at Brady for years and years and years. We were apprentices together, and Steve knew the guys over there at RMD. And I was out on paternity leave. My wife had just had our second son, and I had just bought a house. And so I was on paternity leave, but I was still a field guy. And so I took that time to re-roof my house. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
we don't sit on the couch.
No.
So I took that time to re-roof my house. So I'm up there re-roofing my house with the asphalt shingles, you know, and I don't have a nail gun, man. It's one nail at a time with a hammer, and, you know, yeah, old school, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And wife comes out and she says, hey, Steve Scarpella's on the phone for you. So she threw the phone up on the roof, talking to him. He says, this company called RMD's looking for an estimator. And I'm not the guy for that job. You are. You should be the estimator. That's more of your thing. And I said, well, I appreciate it. I've been looking to get some kind of an estimating job for a while. And so he gave me the phone number, and I had a yellow keel. And on the black tar paper, I wrote the phone number down for RMD Construction. It's still under my roof, so anybody goes to peel the layer off my roof,
That's funny.
it's going to be John Autry. Call his phone number. So I did. I went down for the interview, got the job, and never looked back.
So you know, I think you and I met when you were in the field, and it was maybe like 1993, and I met you in Simi Valley, and it was really strange because it was like a shopping center. It was a Ralph's you guys were doing, and what was bizarre is it was a union gig.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I remember meeting you out there, and we talked for quite a while, and learned a little bit about your history back then. But it was kind of a trip that, you know, it was a shopping center. You know, those are like nail-on jobs. That was a metal stud frame job.
Right. That was a Ralph's and a Save-On, and they used to have Save-Ons. That was for Standard Drywall.
Yes.
And I went out there. The guy that was running was a guy named Tom Modoff, and I think he was retiring, so they sent me out there to go take the thing over. And that was all the way at the end of the 118 freeway, and then it kind of bends around to the 23, and you
Yep.
get off at Los Angeles Street. Remember that?
Yes.
And that job wasn't close to anywhere. Even if you lived in Thousand Oaks, it was still a long drive.
It was.
That was a hike.
It really was,
And-
especially for you from where you were coming from.
Yeah, I was coming from right around the 210 and the 605 freeway, and Standard Drywall sent me out there because I was the guy that lived farthest west. If you remember back in those days, everybody's living in Miraloma and Riverside,
Yes.
and I was like the West Coast office living right there in Arcadia.
Yeah.
And so we're like, yeah, that's an easy drive for you, like 60 miles easy, but
Yeah.
one way.
Yeah. The traffic wasn't quite as bad as it is today.
No, it
But
wasn't.
still a long hike.
Yeah, it was still a poke, but I remember one of the things on that job was Valentine's Day, and I was carpooling with this apprentice kid, and he lived in the same city I did, and I don't know, kid freaked out or something. He says, "Hey, I gotta go," and I'm like, "Well, we're carpooling, and I'm the boss, I can't leave." And he drove that day, and he said, "I'm sorry, I gotta go," and he took off, man. He left me at the job site on Valentine's Day. So Freddie Hayes, who was the superintendent of Standard Drywall at the time, just happened to come out that day, and I said, "Hey, gotta give me a ride home.
Yeah.
I'm stuck out here." And he's like, "What?" So he goes to give me a ride home. We're coming down the 210 freeway, and the 210 freeway stopped. Right there in Duarte, there's a pedestrian bridge overpass. And there was a guy up on top wanting to jump. And he'd been up there all day, and he was up there all through the night. I couldn't even get home.
Oh my God.
So every time I think of that job, I think about that jumper.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the guy jumped or not, but I know that kid didn't have a job the next day.
Yeah, but well, I mean, he didn't have a good excuse to leave you there. That sucked.
No, it was Valentine's Day for everybody.
For sure.
And he wound up getting divorced anyway, and I'm still married, so...
And you were late that day, so it
Heck
all
yeah, I was
worked out.
yeah. But yeah, that's right. That's where we first met.
Yeah, yeah. And I one of the other reasons why I kind of remember that job was, you know, the steel pins to shoot plywood onto metal studs had just come out, and they were using them on that job. And you actually showed me that because you guys threw the plywood on there too.
Yeah, what they called those screw nails?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But they were coming out of a pneumatic gun, and you couldn't get them out of there. And now they're kind of mainstream gig. You know,
I know they've improved it because those things would jam up the gun
Mhm.
really bad. Like you get like a half a sheet of plywood nailed off, and then you'd have to change the gun out, hand the gun off to somebody else, and have them rebuild it, or you're using the backup gun. But I know they got that fixed.
Got it.
That's the only way to go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Especially, yeah, plywood.
yeah. You can't screw plywood on.
No, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
So you moved up the ladder fairly quickly in the trade as far as running jobs and stuff like that.
Yeah, I was not a journeyman very long before I became a foreman, and then I was a foreman, not very long before I became a foreman running very large projects. I remember my first job I was doing was at the Broadway Center for PFC, and I was just a young kid, man. I don't know, probably 25 years old. I'm running this job.
Get it on.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna redefine how we run work, because I went to college and stuff,
Yeah.
and so I'm out there running that job, and the superintendent comes out and he says, "Hey, Mr. K would like to talk to you, Bob K." And I was like, "Really? All right." He's like, "Oh yeah,
Top brass.
top brass, buddy. You're going to the big room." And so he said, "Why don't you take off at noon today and go down and get into the office?" They had an office in El Monte, right off of Stewart.
Yeah. They shared it with Pierce.
Exactly, yeah. And so I left at noon and got down to the office, and the receptionist, I told her I was here to see Mr. K. And she said, "Oh, right, you must be Greg. He's expecting you." Heck yeah, he is.
Yeah.
So I'm Greg. So I walk in this office, and it seemed like it was an airplane hangar, right? It seemed like the biggest office, and it wasn't, but you're standing before the man. And I'm 25 years old, and I'm running work, man, and I'm clobbering it. And young man, I just talked to Bob on Saturday. He still calls me young man. I'm 55 years old. He still calls me young man. Love that.
You're younger than he is.
Yeah. So he says, young man, come in, have a seat. I sit down. He goes, how you doing on that job? I said, I'm doing great. I'm doing great. You know, having a good time, and you know, I think we're doing pretty good out there. He says, you riding those guys hard? You really kicking them in the ass? I said, yes, sir. I'm not letting them get away with anything. And he said, you riding them really hard? I mean, you staying on them, right? Because you're a young kid. Yes, sir, I'm on them really hard. And he takes his paper and he flicks it across the desk at me, and it's a budget. And it's a whole column of negative numbers. And he says, that's them kicking you back. You may want to back off a little bit, young man. You're a bright kid, but you're not too good at running work right now.
That was a surprise for you.
I walked out, I looked my head down, that airplane hangar office seemed even bigger on the way out.
Yeah.
Walked out. I obviously to this day I remember that, and that really kind of tempered how I viewed how you're supposed to treat people when you're in charge.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not about being a yeller or a screamer. You know, ideally at the end of the day, those guys out in the field, they just want to be productive because they want to go to that next job and tell everybody how they hung 75 sheets in a day, or how they got 100 feet of framing up in a day. And if you're the guy that facilitates that and makes that possible for them by getting the RFIs answered, making the errors available, and there are no loose ends, and that journeyman can then really fly and really do his job, they're going to work hard for you without having to be a ball breaker.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, that was obviously a great lesson, because I carry that one with me to this day.
Yeah. Hey, well, there's one good thing. At least he didn't have a paycheck on the desk for you when he sent the papers over.
No, but I knew those weren't too far behind if those negative numbers didn't reverse.
Well, you know, it was always that way. You never knew if you were. They kept it that way, that you never knew if you were going to be on the list. You know, if they were slowing down or whatever, you always did the best you could. But even if they slowed down and they didn't need you, you were gone.
Yeah, you're right. You know, it really doesn't matter how good you are or how bad you are. If there's plenty of work, if you're not that great, you're going to be employed.
Correct.
And if there's not a lot of work and we're in the middle of a depression, it doesn't matter how good you are. You're going to have trouble keeping a job.
Yes.
I remember in it was 93 when PFC went out of business. I went to go do my taxes the following year. And I go down, my tax guy, Loophole Louie. I go down to go talk to Loophole Louie, and I hand him my W-2s, and he counts them, there's 14 of them. And he says, can't you keep a job? And I said, no, your perspective's wrong. I can always get a job.
Yeah.
And it's tough out there.
Yeah.
And during that period, I learned how to hang doors. So I started swinging doors. Like, you called around and they said, can you do this? Yes, I can. And you showed up on site and you're like, all right, I got to fake through this for a couple hours until I can figure it out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I learned how to hang doors during that period, and did an awful lot of stuff. You know, you probably did the same thing. You did what you had to do to survive.
Exactly.
And but yeah, I don't think that's a world record or anything, but that's got to be a big number, 14 W-2s in 12 months.
Yeah. But it's kind of strange in the union. You're actually employed by the union.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's the mothership.
Right.
And you're kind of an independent contractor, so to speak, when you go out in the field and you work for these other guys. But if you're good at what you're doing, you're always working. People need good guys. They're hard to find.
Yeah, no, you're right. And, you know, those are days when, you know, you maybe worked 30 minutes longer, you know, just to keep that job. And you didn't mind. And now that work's plentiful, you know, you ask somebody to work 30 minutes longer and they're, you know, man, I was going to leave 30 minutes early.
Yeah, can we get off early today?
Yeah, exactly.
Nooner.
Yeah, nooner. And, you know, when to get to 14 W-2s, I remember the day I got a job, I started calling for the next one. I didn't wait till I got laid off. So I got hired, and then I'm calling for the next one. And sometimes it would take you a week to get on somewhere, or 2 weeks, or 4 weeks to get on. And, you know, there wasn't a lot of entitlements, there wasn't a lot of big stuff going on, so every job you had was only a month or two long anyway, right? It was
Sure.
all a bunch of small stuff back then, if you remember. They weren't building anything new.
No.
It was all little remodel stuff.
Well, there was no such thing as a $20 million drywall contract.
No.
You know, it was,
No.
you were a player if you had 5 million
Yeah,
in a game.
yeah, yeah,
You know,
exactly.
for your scope of work.
Yeah, I think that Triangle Square Mall in Costa Mesa was like the last big job before savings and loan went belly up. And then, if you recall, '94, the Northridge quake, that's what pulled us all out.
Exactly. That's exactly what ended up happening. It was tough. It was really tough. Things were, there was some big guns that were gonna go down.
Yeah,
And then, you know, they had like, their worst year ever in business for 30 years of being in business to the next year being a record year. for
right.
The whole time that
Right.
they had been in.
Yeah, it was unbelievable recoveries. I remember talking to Larry Rogers, who owned Oxnard and then later Great Western and then sold out to FBM. I was talking to Larry Rogers and he was telling me that the '94 saved his material distributorship. Even the distributorships were suffering, you know,
Yeah.
everybody at every level. And you know, to get an economy jump started, what you want is you want like this huge natural disaster where no one gets hurt.
Exactly.
That's ideal.
Yep.
You know, if everybody could just be out in the middle of the desert, everything just falls flat on its face and it's covered by insurance,
Yeah.
we're good.
Yeah.
You know, because you don't want to see anybody having personal loss or personal
No.
harm, but fortunately for that, you know, there was some loss of life, which was unfortunate with the couple of those apartment buildings going down, but the big damage was the shopping malls and the high rises where the stairways got cracked and nobody was in those at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And that was all insurance work that we were able to repair. And if you recall from that, Slotted Slip Track all of a sudden had a market.
He did, and the thing is he had it out, he had his ducks in a row before that happened and was out there, you know, because we were doing double track. You know, installing, you know, nested track. So he had been doing his legwork on that, and when that hit, like a year or 6 months after, everybody thought that that was the savior.
Yeah.
You know, but that was a big shaker, man. I was 3/4 of a mile from the epicenter when that.
Well, that's right. You lived up there, huh?
Yeah, I was right there, and it was scary, man. It was, you know, when there's big booms, man, I still get a little jumpy on that because it was like a bomb was going off. It
Yeah.
was bad. It was really bad.
I don't think people realize, you know, maybe people in the Midwest or back east that have never experienced an earthquake, you know, there's, for that millisecond, you hear that loud rumble like there's a freight train going through your house or like there's a bomb going off.
Yep.
There's just this microsecond warning of that loud freight train noise. You really don't have time to do anything.
You don't. You know, it's the longest 30 seconds of your life.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
It just is. It's crazy. It was really scary thing. But you know, again, we were in a pretty deep recession that was lasting for a while there, and it was kind of a miracle. You know how it jump started the economy, and at least in California.
Yeah, the local economy. For sure.
Southern California.
Yeah, but then as SoCal goes, the rest of the nation gets that ripple effect. You know, Southern California is when you throw that rock in the pond. Southern California is the epicenter where the rock goes in, and then those ripples eventually go touch every shoreline, which is the whole rest of the country.
Absolutely.
And you know that was right on time, really.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
People have been waiting for that, you know, through, you know, when it crashed in 2008, you know, a couple of years is going by, man, we need a big earthquake here. Well, it's not if, it's
Right.
when it hits.
Right.
We're definitely due. We're overdue for a big shaker here.
We're overdue. You know, all the seismologists and stuff are telling you that we're overdue by 4 or 5 years, I think,
Easily.
for a big one.
Easily.
And I know when we were going through that last downturn, which that was hideous.
It was.
Man, that was hideous. That seemed to last forever.
It did.
I think when it's all done, and it's all said and done, and you and I decide to hang it up and pull the pin and say, that's it, we're retired, easily over a third of our career will have been spent in a downturn.
Yes.
You know, when you count that one and then the 89 to 94 one, we've spent a third of our year or third of our career looking for hard work.
Yes.
And
Yeah, well, when I started the business over here, I only had a couple of years, and then everything crashed, and it was tough. You know, you had to know how to manage your money. You know, so and it won't be we're overdue for a slowdown again. You know, because it's been 10 years, and we usually go in a 7-year cycle for all of this.
I think they were talking. That was probably really good on the mic and everything. That little move I just did right there.
Yeah.
I think they're talking about a little bit of a slowdown coming. I did some research. I'm always doing research and forecasting to see where we're headed, where we're going, where the next hot market is to position a company to seize on that market. Is it going to be public works? Is it going to be healthcare? Is it going to be tenant improvement? Is it going to be hospitality and retail? What are the things that are going to lead the way? And right now in this time and space, it's all of it.
Yes.
You're checking the box, all of the above.
Yes.
And last year in Los Angeles, Long Beach, and Santa Ana, new construction starts for 2018 were $808 billion, according to McGraw-Hill, the reports I read. They're anticipating for 2019 to be 809, so another 1 billion above that. But essentially the same growth, 809 billion in new construction starts. They didn't have a forecast for 20, but they were kind of hinting around about a 10 to 12% pullback. I'm thinking we don't have enough guys right now to do all the work that's out there.
No.
And you know, all of us are upsetting all of our clients because we can't get enough manpower to service the projects. Maybe 10%, 10, 12% slowdown is going to pull back enough to where all of us, all the companies are going to have enough resources to actually manage the stuff the way we want to.
Yeah.
But the Olympics coming in 28, if anything, there'll be just a slight little pullback, a dip, and then, you got to figure 26, 27 leading into the 28 games, you're going to have another ramp up.
Yeah.
But I'll be in Las Vegas and I don't care.
Yeah, well, it's always the Olympics there every day.
Every day there's, I guess it's a different kind of Olympics.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, it's some kind of like birthday suit gymnastics or something in that town. It's the ultimate, it is Sin City,
Yeah. Yeah, it's a trippy place though, because once you get off the strip, it's like it's
a suburb.
Pretty much.
It's suburbia.
It is.
It's a bedroom community.
It really is. It really is, and there's a lot of new, nicer developments.
Right.
When you get on the outskirts, and
Right.
you'll notice when you move over there, they'll have roads that end it, and within 5 years they go another 5 miles.
Right.
They're just
Right.
constantly developing there, and they're finally, they got hit hard over there.
Yeah.
In the housing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But they're finally coming out of it. It took them 8 to 10 years to start turning it.
Yeah, I think the casino owners, and I think that's even true here in LA still. It's still very competitive pricing on bid day. We're not, and I talk to a lot of our friends and neighbors, and we do the industry functions, we're all in agreement. It's just, the numbers are still very, very aggressive. Like we all still have that taste of blood in our mouth from that downturn. And I think the casino owners still had that taste of blood in their mouth when everybody didn't have disposable income anymore. And they couldn't just go gamble anymore. The big rollers were slowing, everybody was slowing down because we had no idea how long that thing was going to last. And you had to hang on to everything. But I think with the Raider Stadium, there's some other bigger developments happening that the hotel owners are now popping loose again. I think there's a couple bigger hotels going in. There's some entitlements coming up, so it'll be interesting to see how long they sustain. But with the Raiders and what do they have, the Knights, their hockey team?
Yeah,
They're a major league city now.
yeah, for sure. They need a basketball and a baseball team, and they're good to go.
Some might say at some point in time the Run Rebels are, a big basketball program that brings in an awful lot of spectators.
Absolutely.
Certainly when Tark was there.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I think that is kind of a fickle economy there compared to LA, because you just have Vegas, and actually you don't even just have Vegas. What you have is the Vegas Strip,
Mm-hmm.
for union work. You get
Yeah.
the Vegas Strip, and that's it. And it's like on an island. Whereas with LA, you've got LA, Long Beach, Santa Barbara, down to the top of San Diego, all the way out to Palm Springs.
Yes.
LA is a geographically gigantic area.
Mm-hmm.
And in LA, we build for the most part horizontally. There's so much land space that we're always just building out. We don't
Exactly.
really build up, although, with all the new entitlements going on in downtown LA, we're certainly going vertical down there now.
Yep. All those guys that bought those parking lots, man, they're cashing in.
I don't know who Joe of Joe's Parking Lots is, but I gotta think his pool's heated and the cars are paid for at
Yeah,
this point.
absolutely. Yeah. No, there's no doubt about it. They're filling that stuff up.
Phew,
Yeah.
man, I wish I was Joe of Joe's Parking Lots.
Parking's a good gig to be in, man. It's low maintenance.
The best thing about parking lots and laundromats? No employees.
Exactly.
You don't have workers' comp,
That's right.
you don't have HR problems, nobody's harassing anybody.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. You just collect your change.
yeah,
Yeah, it's all
Yeah.
good. It's
yeah.
all good.
I always thought that would be the thing to do, is go buy like 10 laundromats.
Yeah.
But then somebody's gotta go change the fan belts on all those stupid things.
Yeah, you just get a service guy in there and do it.
Now you got an employee.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
You would know how to do that. Maybe you could do that in Vegas.
Yeah, go buy a couple laundromats over by the college and become the laundromat king or something, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
But I'd get bored with that, right?
You would. You would.
Not enough stress.
I don't see you retiring. You got ants in your pants.
Yeah, there's no way. There's no way. I mean, we sit and we talk about that and we think, all right, man, 34 years in, maybe I'll put another 5 in, and then that's 40, and I'll hang it up. I'll be 60, and what the heck, I'll just go retire, and then what?
Exactly.
Then what? Go sit at home?
Yeah, scraping and painting. Whoopie-doo.
Man, the wife and I can barely get through a 3-day weekend together. I mean, spend the whole time there?
Yeah.
Yeah, she'd kill me.
I see you going for a long time. I know that you really enjoy what you do. You're always fired up and
Yeah.
trying to make things better.
The industry's been very good to me, and yeah, I am passionate about it.
Mhm.
It's given me
You always have been ever since I've known you.
yeah, it's given me a good life. I love teaching young guys. Well, actually, the female coming in now, it's young people.
Mhm.
It's great to see a lot more females in the industry now. You get that different approach. You get the diversity of all of that.
Yes.
But that's my politically correct statement.
Hey, you're right on point.
Right
dude.
on point, buddy.
You're gonna score some points here.
Well, after the wife comment, she'll be back on board with me now. But yeah, no, it's something that I am very passionate about. I do enjoy building. I haven't really built a building in a very long time, but I do enjoy building companies now. I enjoy being part of that process of being integrated with a really strong team of people, and everybody pulling one rope in one direction for that common goal of getting that company, substantial. And that, every day when my feet hit the floor, man, I'm ready to go.
I know. You're fired. You're fired up. You're
Yeah.
fired up, and you're always willing to learn new stuff and
Yeah.
and be a creative thinker, and that's why you are where you are. That's why you've done well.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is attitude.
Yeah, thank you.
Do you ever go to any of the training centers and do any mentoring or anything like that for the union?
No, I would love to do that. I really would. but the problem is that would get in the way of me working,
That's true.
right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, at some point I'd have to hang my spikes up on the wall and go do that, and you know, you can't even get me out for lunch,
Yeah.
you know, because it's, I don't know, man, I just can't, I can't spend that hour and a half, Robbie. You know, I've got this project I gotta get
Yeah.
out, and
Yeah.
and I literally sit right at my desk. I eat lunch and keep, you know,
Keep
working.
on. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, you're a damn good employee, man.
I know.
No lunch breaks?
Well, no, I mean, you know, according to the state of California and the labor compliance laws, of course I take
Oh, that's
a
right.
1 hour lunch
Yeah, yeah.
daily, and my 2 breaks. I never miss those.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, I just power through.
Yeah.
You know, I go out to lunch sometimes with people, and I'm sitting there thinking, God, I could be getting this done, and I'd be done with that by now. You know, but I know, you know, going out to lunch is part of the process.
It is, and so is that mentoring too, you know, because it's all about the future. You know, it's
Yeah.
all about these inspiring these young guys that are coming into the trade, and they like to hear where you came from and hear your stories, and that's part of this podcast. Hopefully, these young guys are going to tune into this and listen to what guys like you have gone through to get where you're at.
You know, one of the things when I get young guys working with me or young people working with me, I always tell them learn everything. Learn everything. And when, you know, I was at RMD for about a year, and the owner of that company, Ron Dow, it was time for him to retire, so he retired and shut the business down. And I got a job with Mallory Thomason and the Heimels, and that was my lottery ticket. You know, I had a great mentor with the Kea family out in the field, but when I moved into the office, the Heimels were the ones that took me to that next level. You know, Bob is, he is a prince among princes. He's a king of kings.
Yes.
He is an outstanding source of information, and
Lots of history there. Well, he was on the second episode of the podcast.
I want to see that.
Yeah, he did very well. He had a great story.
I have no doubt that he had a great story or two, and you know, he's such a charismatic guy. When he walks in a room, you can't help it. I mean, it's like, who is that guy?
Yeah.
You know, and I worked for him for 14 years, and every time we went into a job site trailer, and he would just want to go out in the field every once in a while, just go see the guys, go see the field, go see what was going on. And we'd walk into a job site trailer, and everybody in the trailer would stop what they were doing and look at this very dignified gentleman. And they would want to know, you know, what was going on there. What's with this
Who
guy?
is this guy? Is this
Yeah.
the owner of the building?
Yeah. And you know, he's opposite of Mr. Kea. Mr. Kea is, you know, I don't know, he's probably 6'6", big man, loud, very quick thinker. Mr. Heimel's a quick thinker as well, but Mr. Kea is very loud, and when he's in a room, you know it. You know it. His size, his volume, the timbre of his voice. Mr. Heimel is very quiet.
Yeah, he's soft-spoken.
Very soft-spoken, very subdued, but no less intelligent.
No, not at all.
Very smart
I mean,
guy.
he had a great story. You'll enjoy it.
Yeah, I can't
He's got
wait.
some history there for sure. And
You know, I spent a lot of time as a lather and a carpenter out in the field, and like you, when the plasterers showed up and they turned on that gun, you hightailed it, because those guys would shoot anything that moved, walked, crawled. They didn't care, and especially if you were the foreman. You were live game for the nozzle man.
Yeah.
So when I came out of the field, I didn't know anything about plaster, because I took off. I didn't want to talk to those guys.
Exactly.
And Mr. Heimel taught me everything I needed to know about plaster, and then some. He taught me stuff I didn't even know I didn't know. He is, in my mind, of the people available to us today, really an extension of the Dick Gormans and the Walt Pruders. Mr. Heimerl is I think one of the last of the valuable resources on the craft of plastering. And what's really amazing about him is he never ever had his tools on.
No, and he disclosed that on the podcast. And I found that kind of trippy, because a lot of times this is all handed down through generations.
Right.
And he was kind of at the right place at the right time and needed a job and got in the game.
Yeah.
And learned it and actually moved up very, very quickly as far as turning into an honor.
Yeah, he did. There was a tragic event there that unfolded, I think, in about 1964-ish. I think it was.
Yeah, he was only 4 years in the game.
Yeah, and I think it was Homer Thomason, was about 36 or something, went in for some kind of stomach surgery and died on the table.
Mm-hmm.
And Tom Mowry, I think, was kind of in need of a partner all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
And so through a set of tragic circumstances, he becomes a part owner of Mowry, and then
just took it from there.
oh man, when I went to work there, when I first went to work there, they were such a relevant company. Not that they're irrelevant now, but I went to my first WWCCA meeting as a Mowry Thomason employee, and I remember everybody in the room coming up. Do you work for Bob now? Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, well, they were always flew under the radar and were doing specialized work, negotiated work and stuff. They didn't run with the pack.
No,
They still don't.
No, they still don't. And at the time they were doing a lot of high-end plaster work, and they were doing a lot of historical plaster. And with some of the historical plaster, especially back in talking maybe about 20 years ago now, they would specify for that historical plaster they wanted horsehair instead of the Gibco fibers. They wanted horsehair in there, real horsehair, and he knew how to do all that. And he's got all these special plaster mixes and stuff that you can shoot on there for 1.5 inches and it'll hang.
Yeah.
And you can still deal with it. It won't fire off too quick. He's got all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, they did just hundreds of thousands of yards of it, before the drywall was coming in the game.
Right.
So
Right.
he had a great story. It was really I was actually very surprised to have Bob on. That it was a ballsy move, for him to come on, because he's kind of a shy guy.
He is kind of shy. When you told me that he was on, I was like, really?
Yeah.
Because that's kind of out of character for him. But I'm glad he did. He has a voice that needs to be heard, and it's a voice that needs to be documented.
Sure.
And I tell him this. I'm not speaking behind his back, but I tell him this to when we talk. He is my drywall godfather.
The Godfather.
He is. I think very highly of him.
Yeah, I'm trying to get a lot of old timers in here while they're still here. You know what I mean?
Thanks.
Well, just like I said to Bob, I'm an old bugger in a 25-year-old's eyes.
When you're old, man, is when they come up and they start calling you Mister. Hey, Mister, or Sir.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually kind of dig it. They're respectful.
It is comforting that there is some level of respect coming out of that younger generation, and I don't think the younger generation is as bad as we're being told.
I agree.
I see them out there. Some of them work for us. Some of them, you just run into them. I have a 25-year-old and a 21-year-old, so I'm meeting with their friends, and I don't think we're doomed.
No.
I think if we get rid of the news, we'd probably be in a lot better shape. But I think today's youth I think they're heading in the right direction.
Yeah.
They seem to have that respect. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean I like to be called Mister, though.
Yeah, well, hey, there's only one way off this ride, brother.
That's right, and I'm not ready for that.
Exactly.
But, no, it's. I think there's some hope out there still.
You have 2 sons?
I have 2 sons. Yeah.
No interest in the trade?
My oldest is 25. He's a physicist for NASA. He works for JPL, and
so he is a rocket scientist.
He actually is a real rocket scientist. Yes. He does real rocket science.
That's amazing.
Up at JPL, yeah. He's, he's one of those A-type personalities, man. When his feet hit the floor in the morning, he is awake and he is moving. He's on the run.
He's doing good.
Yeah. He's just he's always got to have something going on.
Mhm.
So he's just finishing up his master's degree at Cal State Dominguez Hills. I think he's gonna take a little break, and I think he's gonna make a run at a PhD. He probably should. He's a very uncommon intellect. So my youngest son, 21, Matt, actually works for the Kea family. He works for Standard Drywall.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
he is in the game.
He is in the game, kicking and screaming, but he's in the game now. He's a project engineer for them, and he's working for one of my proteges over at Standard Drywall. And
Is he in Southern California?
yeah, he's working over at the Westin over on Catella.
Okay.
I guess just down the street from here, across the street from Disney. Yeah, he's working on that as a project engineer, and I think he's a safety guy on site. He has all the safety certs, and he didn't really want to get into business. He didn't want to get into the family business, and but he didn't really have any other recourse, and he wasn't going to go to college. And I said, "You want a good living with no education? I got just the spot for you." And I pulled some connections.
Yeah. Well, you have a few.
So now I called up Blaine and I said, "Can you do me a favor, please? Can you just interview my son? The favor is the interview. If he works out, hire him. If he doesn't, don't hire him. But the favor is the interview. The rest is up to him." And he said, "Sure, no problem." So they brought him in for an interview, and because he was my kid, they gave him a special interview. They asked him how long he'd been in the trade, what kind of certifications he had, all of his safety certs, OSHA 10, 30, fall protection. He's got all that stuff, CPR. And then Blaine says, "How many balloons will fit in this room?" And what was some of the other questions? If you were a bicycle, what part would you be and why? If you were a salad, what kind of dressing would you have? And are you a dog or a cat person? And one of the final questions was, "Can you sing a song about yourself?" And my son said, "No, I'm not singing." And so the final question they asked him, they said, "What was the cause of World War I?" Well, my youngest son, Matt, is a total war historian. He absolutely gobbles that stuff up. So he gave them a very detailed answer on the causes of the beginning of World War I. And I guess at the end of that, they were like, "Okay." But Blaine called me up later and told me the kid was just rocket fire on the answers, except for the singing one. He wasn't going to sing.
So are you going to use those for some of your interviews up in Vegas?
Yeah, I am drawing some inspiration from that for sure. And I understand that that's kind of a template over there now for Standard Drywall when they bring someone in, that those questions emerge.
Yeah, that would throw you off guard for sure.
Yeah, I guess it kind of tells you what kind of person you're getting on how quick they think on their feet.
Yeah.
I told my son when they asked about the balloons, I said, "You should have asked inflated or deflated." Turn the thing around on him.
You can use that on the next one, but
Yeah.
hopefully he has a long career with them.
I think that's the last interview he'll ever have. I mean, there's a couple companies around town. When you go there, you don't leave, and Standard Drywall is one of those. They're absolutely one of the great companies in town.
Yeah.
And how many former Standard employees are roaming around? Not many,
No.
if any at
That's
all.
for sure. They retire.
Yeah.
But Blaine doesn't have any desire to retire either, does he?
No, you talk about a high energy dude. Man, that cat is on fire
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is. And I think one of the most impressive things about Blaine is he is so integrated in. He's running this mega company, and I don't want to discount his dad or his brother Bobby because they're certainly hand in hand with that, but I don't talk to them as much as I do Blaine. But Blaine knows where every minute detail is with that company. He knows where everything's going. That guy has a high capacity for functioning. Yeah.
Did he work in the field at all?
He did actually. He worked a little bit out in the field. That's where I first met Blaine. I think Blaine was about 17, and I think I was just a journeyman at the time, so I might have been about 24 maybe, and Blaine might have been 17, 18 years old, something like that. I think he was either was a summer between high school grades or summer between high school and college. But he and his brother Brett came out and worked out in the field. And it's funny, I had to call the office for something and, you know, order some box of screws or get me some corned beef or something. You know, I ran short, probably my fault. And so I had to call for some extra materials, and the lady said, "Can you hold on a second, Mr. K, I'd like to speak to you." So he gets on the phone, he says, "Greg, you have the 2 boys out there?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And he says, "I want you to run them hard, and I want you to make sure that they never get in this business." I said, "Yes, sir, I will take care of that. I will work them extra hard." And he goes, "Good." So all those years later, Blaine interviews my son and he hires my son, and I call up Blaine. I said, "You probably don't know about this story, but I told him this." He goes, "No, I never heard that." He goes, "But it sounds just like my dad." And I said, "Well, I'm now telling you the same applies for my kid."
Yeah.
Running hard, working.
Yeah,
But it's funny how everything goes kind of
And-
cyclical.
it is,
Yeah.
for sure. And it's, you know, the construction industry isn't for everybody. You got one in there and you got a rocket scientist on your hands too. And he kind of, you're a super smart guy, man. I mean, you were a mechanical engineer.
Well, aerospace, yeah.
Yeah, aerospace engineer.
Yeah.
So, I mean, wow.
Well,
What
I'm
a-
not
what a
too
change.
smart. I'm in drywall. I mean,
Well,
I hung drywall for 12 years.
yeah.
But
Well,
no,
you got used to that good money back in the day.
What's funny is I got out of college and I turned out as a journeyman at the same time. And so I went to go get some jobs in aerospace, and I went and interviewed with Grumman, Northrop, McDonnell Douglas. You know, they got these job fairs, you know, you go and they got these long tables and there's guys sitting there and they got a cup full of pencils, you know, "Hey, come work for us." And so you're walking down the line talking to these recruiters, and they're telling you, "Yeah, come on board, man, we're gonna pay you like $27,000 a year." You know, it's 1987. "We're gonna pay you $27 a year, or 27,000 a year salary. You know, it's all upside, and you know you're gonna be working with some of the smartest people, building some of the most amazing things." And I'm listening to them, and I was a journeyman drywall hanger making $36,000 a year, $18 an hour, right? Making $36,000 a year, and these guys are asking me, they're excited to ask me to take a 30% cut in pay. And I thought, somebody lied to me at the Career Guidance Center.
Yeah.
They said college was the way to go, man, and here I am working with my hands for a living, and I'm making 30% more than the guys I'm graduating with to go be an engineer.
Yeah.
And you know, aerospace is every bit as volatile as construction, so
Sure.
there's no guarantees there.
No.
And I think over the course of time, I don't think I left any money on the table. I think,
Well, like you said, you know, the industry's been good to you.
yeah,
You know, it has to me too. You know, Lathing's been really, really good to me, and I wouldn't have traded it for anything. I was either
No.
going to get in the automotive industry or construction, and construction I was making good money at a young age,
yeah.
so I stuck with it, and it worked out well.
Yeah,
It worked out very well.
It's, but you know, with the hard work, the determination, and all that other stuff, but you gotta have a little bit of luck along the way.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I'm lucky I
Absolutely.
got to work with the Kias. I'm lucky I got to work with the Heimrals.
KHS&S.
KHS&S later on, and then, you know, finally I get this opportunity with Superior Wall Systems, and they were going through a transition period, and Ron Hudson throws the keys to the building at me and says, "You think you can make this work?" And I was like, I don't know, man. But I told him yes.
Of course.
Of course I can make it work, but inside I'm like, I don't know, man. And you know, he was very good about, you know, I put a business plan together for him. We went over the business plan. He bought into it. And you well know, no matter what kind of a plan you put in place, if the people working with you aren't buying what you're selling, it's not going to work.
No.
You got to get them on board. And I don't know how I don't know. They followed the lead. And I didn't do anything over there. We did it as a team. You know, there was 20 people in that building that worked their behinds off. And Superior really started churning out some big stuff.
Yeah.
And they're still churning out big stuff now, and the team that's there now, they're gonna run without, 2 weeks is gonna be Greg Who. There's some, the guys over there, there's
Yeah,
some very bright
right.
people
He's got
over there.
some killer talent over
Yeah,
there, man. I mean,
yeah.
he's got some really sharp guys.
Yeah, they're gonna continue on with that momentum that they created, and, that place is gonna continue, I don't think there's a cap on that place.
No.
And I'd still be there if this other opportunity didn't come up that just kind of landed in my lap. Some other guy turned it down, and I was the second choice.
And you jumped on it.
I'm okay.
Yeah,
You know?
you're gonna do fine. You are gonna do fine. Like it is, the hardest thing to do is to jump in. That's,
Yeah.
I worked with an old guy, when I was still an apprentice, and we figure out what we were going to do for the day. Had a couple little problem areas, and get it figured out. And you go, the only thing that's holding us back now is fear,
Right.
and that's it.
Right.
You just don't want to fail, especially in your 50s. You don't want to do that.
No, that was something that really kind of went through my mind quite a bit, because I'm not in my early 50s. I'm in my early 60s at 55. And, but I don't think I'm a normal 55-year-old.
I don't think so
act
either. Where's your
like one.
fucking gray hair, man?
I got this.
Yeah.
You know where I got this? I got this great. My kid, the rocket scientist, got hit by a car in a crosswalk
I remember
as a
that.
pedestrian. Remember that? And a week later, I had this.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was scary, man. That was on the news
Yeah, it was.
when he got hit.
Yeah. Yeah. It was funny. You look back now because he's okay, and he's obviously, building stuff to go land on Mars now, but literally Mars. And my dad called, and he said, "Hey, there's a kid got hit in front of your son's high school. Do you know who it is?" And it's us. And it's like,
Yeah, no, that was, it was bad.
yeah,
It
he
was
got
bad.
airlifted. I don't know if you know, but that same day on the 210 freeway, they had an accident where there was multiple fatalities. It was on a Friday, and it shut the 210 freeway down. And that's why it was on the news, because the news helicopters were there over that multiple fatality that happened on the freeway right next to the high school. So they had a life flight chopper coming in for one of the car accident victims. And when my son got hit by the car, they diverted that chopper from that accident to pick him up. So they dropped that helicopter in the schoolyard. They took him into the helicopter, and they flew him off to LAC USC. You probably got some trim all over that building.
Hopefully. Yeah.
But they sent him there, and I was all the way down in. I was working for KHSNS at the time. I was all the way down in Anaheim, deep in Anaheim, and on a Friday morning at 8 o'clock, and I had to get over to LA County. There was an extensive use of the shoulder by me.
Yeah. No, that was. Thank God he recovered, and
Yeah,
now look at him.
yeah.
And you must be
Fortunately,
very, very proud of both of your boys.
yeah, I really am. But
Congratulations.
yeah, thanks.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
But, so how are you doing, man?
Life is good. Life is good. Business is good. Tinkering with some new ideas and doing it all for the industry. Want to try to make it better. I hear about a lot of issues that happen out there, and I want to come up with solutions for it. And get to present them to guys like you. And you guys. I always take your input. And see if I can even improve on it even a little better.
Well, I'm always kidding you about this being Mr. Wizard's lab, because every time I come in here, you get this new invention, and it's not just some invention. It's something that's relevant, that's needed, and in some cases, you've come up with something, a piece of trim, a brake metal. You've come up with something that just completely improves the situation to the point where you're like, why didn't I think of that? you know?
Man, you know what? Like I've told guys, inventing stuff for me is really easy. Marketing it is very difficult, and you know, because there's a lot of different opinions and stuff, and people want to put their twist on it and everything, and they want to turn into inventors, and it's very challenging. But I just can't turn it off. You know, I'm always tinkering with stuff, and again, want to make the industry better because I see a lot of issues. I see us losing market share, and I want to keep it relevant because I know that lath and plaster is never going to go away. It's
Right.
always going to be there, and there's trendy stuff that's happening right now with these different claddings that they're using
Mhm.
on, you know, different looks and stuff like that. But you know, there's just so many different textures and stuff that you can do with plaster, and it's pretty much a maintenance-free product when it's done correctly.
And budget friendly.
Absolutely,
You
yeah.
know, it's funny, all the new claddings come in and the flavor of the month shows up and it's, you know, 3-4 times the cost of plaster,
Mhm.
but it looks really cool.
Yep.
It's low maintenance stuff for the end user, usually.
Mhm.
And everything's going great, and then the economy collapses and everybody's like, forget that stuff, let's go back to lath and plaster.
Exactly.
And,
Exactly.
you know, some of the stuff coming in right now, some of the new materials coming in, the rain screen systems and whatever they want to call them now,
Mhm.
you look at them and you think, oh, it's kind of a funky application for Southern California with the intense heat, the thermal swings that we get. You wonder about the duty cycle of that exterior skin. You go over to Europe and you see these rain screen systems being employed over there, and you're standing there and you're like, it makes sense here.
Mhm.
You know, they don't have, you know, 30 straight days of 110-degree heat,
Sure.
you know, with an index that's just out of control.
Mhm.
Over there, you know, they get in the 80s maybe.
Right.
And you're looking at their systems and the way that they're applying it. You know, a lot of the stuff in Europe is poured in place concrete for the walls
Mhm.
because you know they don't have a lot of, you know, maybe in Germany they got a lot of forests, but there's a lot of places where they don't have a lot of forests, so they're using sand and gravel and they're building their walls out of that, and the rain screen system over that. You look at it with the thermal fibering, you know, that makes a lot of sense here.
Mhm.
But here, with the cost of it, the second that the economy starts sliding, man, we're back to a sand pile, trust me.
Yeah, I agree with you. But you know, the whole other twist to that is all this continuous insulation, and so you know, there's a lot of people making that stuff up as they go. And that I think, you know, some of that could come back and bite people in the butt, and
Yeah,
it's a moving target. It's going to be fully mandatory by 2020. It's going into the residential. You guys are seeing it in the commercial end of it.
mhm,
And so there's not a lot of good details out there to solve these problems. And
Right.
we have the complete solution for that. And take all the RFIs out of it. It's all been tested.
right.
You know, everybody wants tested products and things like that, but they'll still go out and they'll make it up as they go.
Right.
So it's,
The continuous insulation has really kind of turned the exterior of a building into the Wild West again.
it has.
And my biggest concern is the duty cycle on it. How long is it going to last? What's the cracking going to be? Is it going to be more? Is it going to be less? I think a lot of people are hypothesizing that it's going to be a lot more cracking because the radiant heat hits that foam and stays. So your surface temp of that plaster is going to increase. Whereas without the foam, that radiant heat transferred all the way through into the building and didn't hang there on the backside of the plaster, which is the purpose of the continuous insulation, is to keep the heat from getting in.
Mhm.
But over time, is your plaster going to look like a dry lake bed?
Yeah, it hasn't been in.
We don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Time is going to be the dictator of that for sure.
The other one that's scaring me a little bit is, but I'm leaving LA, so I don't care. No, the other one that's scaring me is they're now putting the continuous insulation directly over the studs, and they're bypassing the dense glass. And my concern about that is when we do have a seismic event, and even though no one's really tested the shear value of dense glass, we do know it does contain some shear value.
It does, yeah.
We just don't know to what level, but the foam, you know, you have a 2.5 inch piece of foam on there with just literally a screw holding it on. There is no shear value to that.
Nope.
And we have a seismic event, you know, is the cladding coming off? What's going to happen with that? You
Yeah.
know, that concerns me.
That's going to be very interesting, and I was concerned about that too because, you know, plaster's 12 pounds per square foot.
Right.
You know, 7/8 plaster, and some of these details that we're seeing is they are running Z-furring horizontally, so they're going to cross fur it. You guys are going to frame this thing up 16 inches on center, cross fur it with a Z-bar, and then put the insulation in between it, and then hang dense glass off the face of that, and then 7/8 of plaster. Well, Z-furring horizontally is the weak way.
Right.
Okay, so that's going to be very interesting too,
Right.
on how all of that happens when we get a big shaker. You know, and what
Yeah.
I ended up doing with the diamond fir stuff is I went to a structural engineer and went to worst case scenario as far as 3-inch thick polyiso insulation, and I wanted to see what the shear value was because the screws were, you know, 4.5 inches long.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And that system, we're removing a lot of the fasteners, you know, 55% of them. So I wanted to see what the loads were, and when I had the structural engineer, it all got tested at an accredited testing lab.
Mm-hmm.
He said, well, this thing needs to go up to 600 pounds per square foot. And I'm like, well, this stuff only weighs 12 pounds per square foot. And he goes, I'm the guy who's going to stamp this thing, so I want the safety factor in it. Well, it passed. So it was 3 panels of metal studs, 3 panels
Wow.
of wood stud framing, and every single one of them had that average of 600 pounds per square foot. So I got the stamp.
Nice.
So that was interesting, and it was all based on sandwiching the insulation in between the furring and the framing.
Right.
So there was some leverage there,
Right.
you know, that worked against itself.
Yeah.
And that's what my theory was, and I'm not this major mathematician, but it did pass.
Well,
They
but
got
you know
stamped.
what works, and you have an incredible application of common sense and an incredible application of knowing what needs to be done. And I haven't seen you come up with a bad product. I mean, everything you come up with, the diamond fir it's all very amazing stuff.
Well, thank you.
The ridiculous part about the diamond fir is, you know, of course you want the lath in the middle of the mud.
Right, well, that was the whole point, right? Yeah, exactly.
And when I first saw that, I was like, of course.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
part of the problem with the industry is the lack of furring, right? So
Right.
you know, rigid connections to the building, wire ties for a given connection, and we know back in the day when it was all wire tied, it really didn't crack as much.
Right.
You know, it had some give there. So
Right. Yeah.
just kind of went back to basics of what those guys did in the past, and it's really a trip that they didn't have the modern technology, but they figured this stuff out.
They did, and you know, we go through these big shakers, and it's the old buildings that are still standing.
Yep.
Right? They get like a hairline crack or something, but it's the old buildings that prevail.
Exactly.
And are you having any trouble with the diamond fir finding people that can tie lath?
They bitch about it at first because it's a change, but then when they get on it, they actually enjoy it because it's something different, and they're racing each other out there,
Right.
and they're tying off 130 square feet an hour.
Wow.
So they're getting it down. And if you're a lather, you need to know how to fucking tie the lath, right?
Right.
That's part of your gig.
Right.
You
But
know?
it's a lost art.
Well,
Which is why I asked the question.
yeah.
You know, you and I are old enough to remember the old lathers that were lathing when there was no drywall.
Mhm.
They lathed everything,
Exactly.
and everything was tied.
Mhm.
And you know, you could watch a guy tying lids, and he's tying lids as fast as he's walking.
Mhm.
He's just walking like a day in the park, right?
Yeah.
And he's just tying overhead.
Yeah.
And I remember running into a couple of those guys, and I'm like, man, I don't know if I got the dexterity to do that.
Mhm.
And I never did get the dexterity to do that.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like anything else. Some guys are better at some things than others, but
Yeah.
you know, it was. You know, you hear a lot of theories about, you know, guys that have worked in the industry for a number of years and they're stuck on what they think and how stuff should work, but that doesn't get anything done. It's not helping the industry, it's
Right.
just listening to opinions. So again, you know, just wanted to come up with a solution that we know that worked in the past,
Right.
but they got away from it. And so well, just trying to improve the industry so that we can keep on going.
That is
Thank you very much for the compliment.
one of the biggest revolutions on the outside of a wall, really, is getting, I mean, of course you want the wire in the middle of the mud, for crying out loud.
Right, yeah.
Duh.
Well, the paper doesn't hold the mud on the wall.
No.
Right, okay,
No.
so it's all about where that's placed. Well, it's the same thing like with rebar. When you're gonna pour a slab, they don't lay it on the dirt. They put
No.
the blocks under it.
Pull it back up.
It's
Yeah.
in the middle.
You know, what's funny is when I first started at Mallory, we were doing a lot of Disney work, and we did a lot of those rocks. And we were hand forming rocks using stainless steel pencil rod, stainless steel lath, and then, you know, so we'd do the pencil rod, and then we'd put the lath over the face of the pencil rod, and then we'd shoot the mud onto the lath, and it would ride on the face of the lath. And in time, as I transitioned over to KHS&S and we're working on Cars Land and that we're doing that mountain, KHS&S had altered the technology, and they were building these rocks out of CNC machines now, right?
Mhm.
And they did a laser scan of the model and started bending pencil rod and assembling it in a shop. And they were putting the lath on the back of the pencil rod so that when they called them chips, and so when they were hanging the chips on that mountain, the lath was in the back and the pencil rod was out front. So when they were shooting the mud, the lath was actually catching it and holding it so it would encapsulate the pencil rod.
Mhm.
And again, you know, I'm looking at that going, duh,
Yeah,
why
yeah.
didn't we do that before?
Well, you know, again, you know, it didn't make a lot of sense to me when stuff goes sideways on these jobs. Okay,
Yeah.
so you're putting all this waterproofing up and you're going to put 100 million holes in it.
Right.
And then, you know, if it does go sideways and it leaks, they open it up and they go, hey, who put the holes in this? Well, the plastering contractor did. Okay, you own it.
Yeah,
You know, so try to get away from these lawsuits for our industry, and less fasteners, the better.
well, and your window counter flashing, if you recall that the job that you and I did, the Jewish Home for the Aging,
Yes.
and you know, we had some trim needs out there.
Mhm.
And that was one of the first jobs where they used a waterproofing consultant, and he came up with the rope, belt, and suspenders to hold your pants up. And if you remember around those windows, by the time we got done putting all that buildup and all that flashing and counter flashing and peel and stick and everything, we only had a 1/2 inch left.
Yep.
And so you had to custom make us some trim, some aluminum reveals that would go from the 7/8 and then right into that 1/2 inch. And you and I were standing down there, I remember that. We're standing down there in that courtyard scratching our head, and we both said, we're gonna shoot the mud on that thing and it's gonna do a picture frame crack all the way around those windows.
Yep.
And sure enough, when we got done, dropped the scaffold, there was a picture frame crack around, not every window, but quite a few of them. And you know, they're asking, what is it? Well, it's your waterproofing. How could it be the waterproofing? You gotta talk about surface tension of the plaster. And that counter flashing that you have lets you go ahead and ride that full 7/8
Yep.
all the way into the window. So now you have an even surface tension. You don't get that crack now.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. There's a lot of benefits to
Yeah.
going that way. Liability for everybody, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Including like on previous episodes, the owner of the building, he's the guy stuck holding the bag.
Right.
You know, he just paid to get the thing done. And
Right.
so we want to give him a good job
Yeah.
so that he builds more buildings.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple.
Yeah, we really do want to building more buildings
Yeah.
and more buildings with mud. And
Yeah.
that's better for us.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
absolutely.
Well, Greg, we're running out of time on this episode, and
Okay.
you have had one hell of a great story to tell. We may have to get you back on.
Hey, you want a part 2? Just let me know, man.
Yeah, we may have to go up to Vegas and do it.
Come on over.
Right.
I could probably give you the slant on a new guy in town spin on what it's like to go to the grocery store and have somebody hand you one of those get a hooker sent to your house business cards. I mean, where else in the world does that happen?
I know.
You can walk down the street, and only that street, right, with open containers, and people are handing you, God knows what for
Yeah.
God knows what.
Exactly.
And-
But you can carry there too.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So
That's,
you can
hallelujah.
exercise your Second Amendment freedoms there, which
Absolutely.
I will be doing.
good for you. Good for you. Keep it on.
I don't think it's any secret. I'm a very pro Second Amendment guy. So
Yeah. Hey, it was there to protect us.
that's right.
That's why it was
Yeah.
there. So
Well, you're not going to need the Second Amendment until they start taking the other ones away,
that's right.
right?
That's right.
And
But at least it's there, and it needs to be protected.
for now.
Yep.
Yeah, we gotta make sure that they don't dilute that in any way, even though they're making a run at it. But that'll be on the next episode.
Absolutely. Greg, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks, Rob.
All right.
Appreciate it very much.